I now call Stuart Stevenson. Mr Stevenson, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. My participation in this debate in no way adumbrates a change in my responsibilities, but does, of course, allow me to say something about the end of the motion, which relates to land provision and infrastructure. But I will try first to deal with as many points with brio and dynamism as I possibly can in the 5 minutes I have. Let me just make a general point, first of all, and I want to engage you with the first law of epigenetics. The more highly optimised an organism is for one environment, the more adversely it will be affected by change in that environment. The point is, there is intrinsic value in having a diverse approach to things. That is precisely why, of course, we would not agree or sign up with what Jamie McGregor said. There's no place for council housing. Of course there's a place for council housing, as part of that diversity of housing provision that is necessary to address our needs. It's also worth thinking that the nature of tenure is not necessarily linked to the way in which various nations work. 20 years ago, in what is now the European Union 27, the country with the highest proportion of rented accommodation was Germany, and the country with the highest proportion of owner-occupied property was actually Bulgaria. So therefore, diversity, even with political systems and political leadership, is there and is quite significant. Money has come up, of course it has, as a thread running through much of this debate. And yes, money is difficult to get for government, it's difficult for housing associations, it's difficult for businesses. That is precisely why, of course, it's been so important that the government has been putting money on the table, for example, helping the cash flow of companies who've got stock unsold. We've put £35 million of accelerated funding in place this year, 10.235 for construction, delivering 716 new homes, 12.72 for land purchase, which I may say has been the absolute key the Minister for Communities and Sport and myself found when we visited the Irish Government a couple of weeks ago, to their ability to engage in many of their developments in housing and in economic development. Land banks give government something to bring to the table, and 12.111 million to secure 204 unsold new properties. In total, 1,700 new homes, and more fundamentally, cash flowing back into the system that will make a very real difference to what will happen. Ross Finney, I have to say, chided us somewhat for talking about the low number of council houses built by the previous administration. Therefore, I will say nothing about it at all. However, by excluding council houses from the way forward, I think Ross Finney, in suggesting they'll support the Tory amendment, is making a grosser error than we may perhaps in his mind have been making by focusing on that. I urge him to think more carefully. Rhoda Grant made a very good point about difficulties that there are in rural areas, about the difficulties of incomers outbidding locals. That's recognised. That is why you need diversity. That is why you need more affordable housing. It's worth just making the point, of course, on lead developers. That's been a thread that's come through. The consultation remains in progress. Rhoda Grant said she had some suggestions. Well, let's hear them. We will, of course, consider them. Joanne Lamont, in a pretty standard contribution, while agreeing with the arguments of the government in many cases, managed to express them in a way that would suggest otherwise. I'm going to ignore that. But she did have one good point that I thought was worth exploring, and that was the tension between economies of scale and diseconomies of scale. There is room, of course, for big, efficient national organisations, but equally we do need organisations on the ground that are responsive to local needs, are connected to local people. We have to get that balance right, because there is that tension that exists there. This government, I'm now out of time, I'm sorry. This government is undoubtedly a government that is responsible, we're reliable, we're resilient in the face of change, we're responsive to change. I'm happy to support everything my colleague said, and of course we'll be supporting the Labour Party at 5 o'clock.